Hi folks, so this is a very simple topic and hopefully I should be able to cover in a short amount of time. And it is simply that when many people are having discussions on forums or in the comments on videos like this one about different weapons and different weapons' effectiveness, there's a tendency amongst people to only think of the weapon within a fight. Okay. And the fact of the matter is that what weapons are used by certain types of soldiers throughout history, there are many different considerations that play a part in that decision-making process. So there's how convenient is it to carry, how expensive is it, various other factors, and then one of them, of course, is how effective is it to use. And people tend to look at this, how effective is it as a weapon, and forget that the majority of the time a weapon is not being used as a weapon. So if we take one of our favourite topics, which is the sword, the reason that swords have been so hugely popular for such a large amount of recorded history is because they're a sidearm. They're easy to wear, they're easy to carry around, they're not really heavy, they don't really get in the way unless they're a very big sword, and they tended to not be carried around. And so essentially it's something that's quite convenient and easy to carry around, much like a knife or a pistol. Okay? And this inevitably is one of the reasons why so many fencing treatises and manuals actually focus on the use of this weapon, because it's the type of weapon that you can have on you at any time for personal defence. You can travel with it, you can go shopping with it, you can go walk around the house with it, you can do many different activities comfortably wearing a sword or a knife or a pistol. Contrary to that, a spear, which, as I've hopefully shown people in previous videos, and as many of you will know already anyway, a spear is essentially a more effective weapon than a sword, but you cannot comfortably carry a spear around in most shall we say, urban or built-up societies. Yes, there are cultures in the world and places in the world where people live in a more natural environment and live out in the open and do have a spear with them at all times. However, if you're living in a town or even living in a village, then most of the time it's not convenient to carry a spear around. They're a pain in the butt, they're long, you have to have them in your hand, you can't wear a spear. And equally, that goes for all other types of pole weapon as well. And if we're talking about missile weapons, well, of course, things like longbows and crossbows are convenient-ish to carry, but they're not as easy to carry as a pistol, for example. You can't really wear a crossbow very easily. You might be able to sling it on your back somehow. You can't wear a bow very easily unless it's a short bow, a short recurve bow. And it is worth noting at that point actually that in the Middle East and North Africa and parts of Asia, short recurve bows were in fact worn in a type of quiver that accommodated the arrows and the bow, either on the horse or actually at the person's side. So really, being able to wear a weapon is something that contributes towards its popularity. Okay, and then also we've got the question of economy. Okay, and this comes through even to modern times. So many of our modern militaries don't necessarily use the best firearm that they can have. They use the one that they can afford. They can afford to buy it in large numbers. They can afford to maintain it. In other words, it's relatively simple to look after, not too expensive to correct when it goes wrong and things like that. And lastly, of course, the ammunition for it is affordable. So I guess most people watching this channel have a good idea that one of the reasons that 5.56mm ammunition became the NATO standard round was because it was relatively cheap, and soldiers can carry large quantities of it because it's a fairly light ammunition. 7.62, which has been shown to be more effective in many situations, is far bigger and far heavier, so you can't carry as many magazines of it. And I do realise there are other advantages to 5.56 as well, like some types of armour penetration and so on. But there are many what I'm trying to say is there are many factors behind why a weapon or weapon set or weapon system is chosen, not simply effectiveness. So, that's all I wanted to say. Remember, when you're talking about weapons, it's not all about how effective that weapon is within the scenario of a fight. It's also a question of how affordable is it, how robust is it, maintainable, does it break easily if you're giving it to soldiers who are not going to look after it very well, and also is it affordable as an item and easy to carry and all of these kind of things. Thank you.